Hello everybody. We return to league action with a trip to Molineux, where we'll be hosted by Wolverhampton Wanderers. It's one of those rare Saturday 3 p.m. kickoffs. Travelling up there, engineering work will be taking place between Shoeburyness and Leigh-on-Sea, so make sure you leave in time for the trip to Euston if that's your part of the world. Also, if you are planning on using the tram network up there, forget it. All services on the West Midlands Metro have been suspended following the discovery that the wheels had more cracks in them than, well, metal. Check before you leave, as ever. Wolves then. Well, no doubt they'll be paying tribute to the late Ron Flowers, who, despite the 1950s name, was actually part of the 1966 World Cup squad, albeit an unused player. Well, doff the hat here. Wolves, of course, are under new management this season. Nuno Espirito Santo left in the summer to take Spurs to the promised land of the top 10, and is now having a bit of a rest, having achieved that aim. Wolves continued with the Portuguese theme by bringing in former Benfica coach Bruno Lage. Lage's management career has been spent largely in the backrooms of European football, either with youth teams, B teams, or as assistant manager to first-team coaches. Such was his role at Sheffield Wednesday and Swansea, with whom his previous 3-year spell in English and Welsh football was spent. After leaving Swansea, he went back to Portugal to work with the Benfica B team, having run the youth teams there previously. A mere 6 months into the role, he found himself donning one of those brown overcoats as caretaker manager for the first 11, after a bad run saw Rui Vitória given the boot. Lage not only got things on an even keel, he actually won the title, winning numerous Lisbon derbies and thrashing Portugal's equivalent of Spurs 10-0 in the process. The brown overcoat was promptly handed back as the word caretaker was removed from the job title plate on his office doors. However, despite taking the Portuguese Super Cup at the start of the season, he stood aside for his own assistant following a bad run and was finally sacked in July 2020. Following his arrival at Molineux, they had a start best described as lousy. They lost their first 3 matches 1-0, those being away at Leicester and at home to basket cases Spurs and Man United. However, they then won 5 of their next 8, with a defeat at home to Brentford and a draw at Leeds being the only blips in a run that finally came to end with a 2-0 defeat at Crystal Palace just before the break. All this has left them with 16 points from 11 games, good enough to keep them in 8th place over the overachieving Spurs, who are in 9th on goal difference. Daisy, the personal assistant with a beautiful smile from whom I no longer have to remain socially distanced, tells me that 4 first-team players arrived during the summer window. Colombian central defender Yerson Mosquera arrived for an undisclosed fee said to be about £4.5 million. Only 20 is yet to be capped at full international level, and the fact his sole appearance to date has come in the League Cup suggests that he's on the one for the future list, particularly since he arrived after only 16 first-team appearances for Colombian side Atlético Nacional. The signing of left-back Ryan Ait-Nouri is in fact the making permanent of a loan deal agreed back in October 2020. He made 21 appearances last season, prompting Wolves to exercise the option for £9.8 million. They have a new first-choice custodian of the onion bag on board. José Sá replaced Rui Patricio, who left for Italy in the close season. The Portuguese, of course he's Portuguese, keeper came in for €8 million, which is around £7 million, give or take. He came in from Olympiacos and he's been capped at every level up to and including under-23 level by the Portuguese. He's started all 11 league matches this term. Hungarian right-back Bendeguz Bola probably hasn't seen Wolverhampton yet, having immediately been sent out to Grasshoppers in Zurich on loan, so we won't dwell on him. However, the 2 loan signings that did arrive are of a bit more interest. Portuguese, of course he's Portuguese, winger Francisco Trincao is on a season's loan with an option from Barcelona, who paid his previous employers, Braga, €31 million, which is around £27 million, for him back in 2018, slapping in a £500 million buyout clause for good measure. I rather suspect that even when Wolves make the deal permanent, the actual fee will be just a little bit less than that. Just call it intuition. The other loan arrival was striker Huang Hee-chan, who is on a season-long loan from Fizzy Drinks Leipzig. He's nicknamed Bull by his South Korean compatriots. The nickname has nothing to do with the former Molineux favourite of that name, but it's said to be an amusing pun on the striker's name in Korean. Those wacky Koreans, eh? He's their top scorer, though such is the number of times you hear his name being mentioned in reports, I had it in my head that he had considerably more than the 4 goals that he actually has to his name. I suppose I should pay more attention. And so on we go to the wild and wacky world of association football. It's been World Cup qualification time, of course. South Africa have asked for their qualifier against Ghana to be replayed following a string of questionable decisions by the referee. The authorities here are looking on nervously, worried that it will take until the year 3000 to clear the backlog of replays if they're to undertake a similar review of PGMOL's output. The international break finished up with England qualifying for the World Cup. Spurs fans hailing Harry Kane as world class for his 4 goals against San Marino. I'm not quite sure where that leaves me in the pecking order, given that I once scored 6 goals for Midland Bank FC in a Southern Amateur League match in 1986 against Barclays. I know it wasn't a World Cup match, but it was still a double hat-trick against a team comprised of bank officials, so by that logic. Meanwhile, back in the league, Norwich didn't appoint Frank Lampard Jr. as their boss. Lampard, presumably having worked out the fact that he hasn't been a very good manager to date, might just be exposed in the harsh reality of a likely East Anglian relegation. Dean Smith has now taken on the job, so look forward to players rolling around the pitch as they beat their inevitable path back to the 2nd Division. And so, let's move on to us. Well, the win against Liverpool, if you can remember that far back, was highly deserved against a side that came with their usual sense of entitlement, based solely on the fact that they've been cheating referees for so long they can't believe it when they still don't get a decision. The so-called foul on Alisson, which 2 weeks later he's still lying through his teeth about, wasn't a foul. The dive from Salah, on the other hand, was pure and simple cheating, something that the world knows as a trademark of both Salah and his club. Indeed, the late challenge that would have brought them a totally undeserved equaliser came as the result of another illegally gained free kick. It's very disappointing because at the start of this season, PGMOL made great play of announcing that from this season they would actually apply the laws of the game as always intended with regard to simulation, as they were always supposed to be applied, rather than the interpretation that teams like Liverpool have been peddling to cover up the fact that they've got the art of cheating down to, well, a fine art. No more will players be able to go down under the slightest bit of contact, PGMOL proudly announced. Well, 24 hours before our game, Newcastle gave away a penalty to Brighton where, although there had been a bit of contact, the striker went down only as an afterthought after seeing that he would not be able to get to the ball. When I saw that one, I feared that we'd be on the receiving end of one of those against the specialists. I wasn't wrong, was I? The win, for which 6 points ought to have been awarded given that we faced 12 men, sees us now in 3rd place, off second only on goal difference. It just goes to serve to highlight the difference between us and certain supporters from, say, North London. Whilst at this stage they'd be full of talk about winning the league, no really, and qualifying for the so-called Champions League, we're full of self-deprecating humour about being massive and how another 17 points should see us safe from relegation. As I said this time last year, it's by far and away the best attitude to take. Enjoy the ride, don't have too much in the way of expectation, and see where we end up. On the injury front, Rice should have recovered from the flu. Hey, Liverpool Echo, funny how Rice bossed that game whilst he was ill, wasn't it? Ogbonna's knee will keep him out for a while. Jota's assault, disgusting though it was, being not too long-term an issue. Expect Dawson to stay in along Zuma. Both Yarmolenko and Vlasic are said to have had minor knocks keeping them out of contention in recent weeks, but they ought to be there or thereabouts for the squad. Prediction. Well, old school West Ham would follow a win against high flyers with a defeat to someone less exalted. But as I mentioned in a recent treatise on our old habit of sequence busting, those days seem to have gone. Although the home side can on their day give many teams a game, I reckon that this will be one for us. So let's spend the £2.50 that would have gone on a condolence card for the poor, hard-done-by supporters of Liverpool. Let's put it on a win. Make it 2-1 to us, Mr. Winston. With the usual rule about this weekend's referee applying, of course. Enjoy the game.
Yes. And big knees up Mother Brown, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm regularly on the general discussion page There's always someone who's got some information, so I love it. Yeah, it's great. Yes, it's excitement surrounded by imminent disappointment. That's what it mostly is.
Get on the forum at kumb.com. Come on, you irons.